Hello, I'd like to call this meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission.
You're not on speaker.
It says I'm on. Esther, excuse me, my microphone is on and people aren't hearing me. Testing, can you guys hear me? Are you hearing me now? I'm sorry. Okay. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission. And at this time, will you rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can you call the roll, please?
Chair McMinn,
Here.
Vice Chair Morris,
Here.
Commissioner Garvin,
Here.
Commissioner Lemo is absent, Commissioner McDonald,
Here.
Commissioner McKay, here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any person who wishes to speak regarding an item on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction must file a purple speaker card with the recording secretary before the public comment portion of the agenda is called. Under state law, issues presented or introduced under public comments, unless scheduled agenda items, can have no action and will be referred to the Traffic Engineering Division Manager for administrative action or scheduled on a subsequent agenda. Okay, at this time we have public comments, and I understand that the red light is broken. So if the yellow light goes out, that means the red light should have come on and you're done. Okay. At the lectern, there's a green and then a yellow and the red that doesn't work. Also, if you are speaking on during public comments or on this issue, which I suspect you're all about, I want to clarify. If you write that you are for or pro the issue, it means you like what's been done on Valley Spring. And if you are con, if you write in your comment card, that means you don't like what's been done, just so that we all are all on the same page. Okay? So public comments. Do we have any public comments? No? It's just, okay, so everybody wants to speak on the next item. Okay, number 5 is the summary notes of May 17th. Do you have any questions or comments on those notes? Okay. Engineer report, item number 6, Valley Spring Drive traffic control measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair McMahon. This item is presented to the Traffic Commission as a follow-up to recent traffic control measures implemented along Valley Spring Drive between Westlake Boulevard and Lakeview Canyon Road. All traffic control measures were recommended for installation by the Traffic Commission back in January of this year. We've moved forward with a monitoring program, and based on mixed public reaction we received by phone and email, this item is presented to the Traffic Commission so that they can hear public input and provide direction to staff. Staff recommendation is to consider the staff report that you have inside in your packet, receive the public input, and decide on an improvement program as appropriate. Our recommendation is the Commission reaffirm all previous action on Valley Spring Drive, reaffirm that the guardrail installation that's due to be installed near Club View Drive later this year, reaffirm a monitoring program which we're currently in the process of to collect data over the next 3 to 6 months, and reaffirm the planned follow-up meeting to review the findings of our monitoring program, which we're looking to complete later this year or early of '07. Just to give a little background, in June 1st of this year, a number of traffic control measures were installed on Valley Spring Drive. I'll go over them briefly. The first item was a right turn or stop sign from northbound Westlake Boulevard at the right turn lane onto eastbound Valley Spring Drive. Second item was a three-way stop control at the T intersection of Fairmount and Valley Spring. A bicycle lane between Westlake Boulevard to Upper Ranch Road. A marked parking lane and edge line markings throughout the entire stretch of roadway. An eastbound left turn lane at the intersection of Clubview Drive. No parking zones within that intersection of Clubview Drive. Additional regulatory warning signs to advise motorists of the changed traffic conditions, parking conditions, and bicycle lanes. New pavement legends, including stop signs, and there are some pavement legends for bicycle lanes which have not been completed, but those are planned to be completed soon. There are a number of temporary stop signs or temporary signs that read change condition ahead, that have large orange flags, and the orange flags are also on the stop ahead signs. All temporary signs will be removed within 3 to 6 months because of the change, and we want to make sure that all motorists are aware of the traffic conditions that have been implemented along Valley Spring Drive. Each of the traffic measures that were installed were based on satisfying specific engineering guidelines and criteria. We do not support the installation of traffic control measures where these engineering guidelines are not fully satisfied. We'd just like to emphasize that the stop signs were not installed to control speed. They were installed as a result of meeting the engineering criteria for sight distance. A number of the residents that had called or emailed staff, their dissatisfaction were based on a number of reasons, including the changed appearance of the road with new striping, new signing, and orange flags, the inconvenience of stopping at the new stop signs, concern over a rear-end potential at the new stop signs. Backups were reported on the right turn lane from Westlake Boulevard onto Valley Spring Drive, and a lack of notification for the planned traffic control measures. This item again is presented to the Traffic Commission to give residents an opportunity who were not aware of previous meetings a chance to present their concerns to the Traffic Commission. Our monitoring process includes receiving public input, and this is an extension of the monitoring process that's going on Valley Spring Drive. If the Commission recommends something different from what the staff recommendation is, we would probably need to have to continue this meeting, come back, notify the residents of what the proposed changes are, if any, and let them be aware of what specific actions are being proposed so that they're fully aware of the decision that would arise at a future meeting. Otherwise, it is our staff's intent to follow the monitoring program and report back later this year or early of '07 with the results of our monitoring program, so that we can develop recommendations as far as any changes that might be needed, removals, or install additional traffic control measures. At this time, we feel there's insufficient data to support any definitive changes to the traffic control along Valley Spring Drive. Therefore, we're recommending that we continue with our monitoring program. That concludes this report, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
For clarification, would you tell us the schedule for the items that weren't completed, specifically, I guess, the railing?
There's a guardrail plan in the vicinity of Clubview Drive, and that's going to be implemented probably in the fall. Right now, the city staff is preparing plans and specifications so that the project could go out to bid this summer.
there any other questions? Okay. It appears we have a main speaker and about 6 speaker cards, and there's a lot of people here. If you want to be, oh, we have more speaker cards? Okay. In that case, as you get up, if somebody already said, expressed how you feel, maybe just say, I agree, because, we don't need, we want to hear from all of you, but if everybody's going to say the same thing, just let us know that you agree with everybody else or you disagree or whatever. But you do, I don't want to say you don't have the time. The main speaker has 10 minutes and everyone else has 5 minutes. So at this point, I will call up John DeJoya. Okay, thank you. And state your name and city of residence, please.
My name is John DeJoya. I live in Thousand Oaks, and specifically I live on Valley Spring Drive. And first thing I'd like to start is to say that both my wife Deanna and I are in favor of the measures that have been put in. We'd encourage you to support those recommendations as outlined in the June 21st memo from John Helliwell to the Commission. We like what we see, and we think that it should be given an opportunity to be accepted, at least to live for a while before it's shot down. You discussed this issue with us for over a year. This was not the first meeting we attended. This activity has been going on for approximately a year period, and we've done that with multiple residents in the neighborhood of a couple dozen individual different residents that participated in this over multiple meetings. And we appreciate the time you spent with us and an understanding that there really were issues to deal with here. And we think that the Traffic Commission's implementation did a good job of addressing those issues, even though there are people here that don't agree. I'd also like to thank the Traffic Engineering Group for working with us, because when you initially went out there to mark where the markings were, I know you received a handful of comments and that you were flexible in what you were able to do, all with the intent of preserving parking in front of people's homes, as well as making sure that there was good access in and out of driveways across mediums. And so I do appreciate that. I'm aware, like most of you, that there are numerous complaints. My job is to stand up here and give you my perspective, the pro side of this, of why we don't necessarily agree with those complaints, or we would ask for some consideration, at least for a period of time, in accepting this. Let's go to the change the appearance of the street with new signage, striping, and orange flags. Some of this will be a reiteration of what Jim commented on, but I guess I'd open up with improvements are impossible if there's not compromise. If you leave the situation as it is, nothing will change. Safety problems will still exist, and the whole intent of this was to bring those safety issues forward and come up with solutions to those. The signing was done to bring attention to road condition changes, i.e. the stop signs, as well as defined parking areas and bicycle lanes. Many of the signs are temporary. I'm not sure everybody knows what's temporary and what's permanent, and they'll be removed in approximately 6 months, along with the orange flags, which are really there to draw everybody's attention, mainly the residents, but those that do enter the street, to see that there's a change in the traffic condition. Striping was done to move traffic away from the gutter, because in North Ranch we don't have sidewalks. And if you go out there on a weekend or after work or before work, you'll see people walking in the street. And unfortunately, it's a wide street, and what we have is a situation where people don't stay to the center divider. And we've seen numerous occasions, and there's been numerous complaints of the residents that somebody's going to get killed. And we've witnessed on our own situations. My wife was in a situation where she was almost run over because people take their cars and in the turns duck them into the gutter. So I agree with you. It does change the aesthetics, but unfortunately the road here has changed since that development was put in. And we have what we call a cut-through street, because people want to cut across and don't stay on Westlake because it's crowded and go over to Lindero Canyon or the other areas. Next point was inconvenience of stopping at new stop signs. Stop signs and left turn lanes were installed because of safety issues, not because of speed control. We spent a year in here with the Traffic Commission, and I'll tell you, if it was up to some of us residents, we'd probably put another 2 or 3 stop signs along the street because we cannot tolerate the traffic speeds that are there. In front of my home, I have speeds that approach 60, 70 miles an hour from Rusnick, Infinity, because it's a nice straightaway to go up to the country club and put their foot in it. But that's not why traffic stop signs were there. They were there because there's safety issues. Prior to the installation of the stop sign at what I call the on-ramp from from Westlake to Valley Spring, it was not uncommon for drivers to not honor the yield sign and at speeds of 35 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour merge onto Westlake Boulevard, to Valley Spring. I was hit almost twice. Literally, I had to pull my car into the center divider at that point to the left-hand side 2 times, personally. I know it's an inconvenience, but it seems to be a small price to pay for our safety. Concern of being rear-ended at the new stop signs. The road markings are clear and well displayed. I would recommend, though, I believe this was discussed when we talked about the stop sign at Fairmont, that the city would look at trimming back slightly the foliage there so that you had a good visual view of the stop sign. I would ask that be done, but sensitivity be given to the neighbors that are adjacent so we don't hack those trees up and ruin what they see as beauty to them. Traffic backups on Westlake was raised in the report at peak periods. There's approximately room for 8 cars. I believe the Traffic Commission, the traffic engineers have determined that's adequate to eliminate a backup. Lack of notification of planned traffic control measures or previous Traffic Commission meetings. I can only tell you I attended multiple meetings in here with multiple residents. I'll also tell you that those meetings have been listed on the Traffic Commission agenda. And to go further, the Westlake Homeowners Association, our Westlake North Homeowners Association, on multiple occasions had that in the newsletter. This hasn't been a conspiracy to change the street and not tell anybody. It's been an open process, and it's a process that was focused on trying to make improvements in safety for people in the neighborhood. What I can tell you is that I've seen a major improvement in the conduct of those traveling along Valley Spring since the improvements were made. And I don't find the stops to be inconvenient. Friends of mine who have driven the street since the improvements were made have commented that they drive the street differently because of the edge markings, the lane markings. They now drive to the center of the street and don't cut the corners, and it has had an effect to slow their speed down. To me, and I think those of us that came to work on this issue, safety is more important than a few lost seconds a day or a little bit of inconvenience. This is a neighborhood we live in. We spend a lot of time there. I'll also tell you that you only have to experience death one time to change your outlook on things. There was an individual killed across the street from my home. I was the first one that was in the backyard from the Valley Spring side. My wife was there as the person died. If these changes had been put in 2 years prior to that, safety changes, it's a good possibility there'd be somebody still alive today. Things happen on that street. There's been 3 accidents in about a 3-year period in a very short stretch of roadway. People race up and down, areas where people try and make left turns, they get hit or almost hit. And so the improvements, once again, I'd like to get across to everybody, is to really improve the quality of life. So what I'm going to ask again is that you today, or when you meet again, you continue to support the recommendations that the traffic engineers have put in their memo to you today, that you give it some time, you allow this to be accepted by the neighbors, and if 6 months from now everybody feels the same way and you determine this is not effective, then it's a good time to come back and talk about this. In closing, I can't tell you that those that participate in this are in this meeting, but I can tell you that we have adults that are acting like adolescents. And the forum to object to this is in this room. It's not driving by people's houses that were involved in this and beeping their horn and harassing. That's unacceptable. If you're an adult, don't do it. It's not the right way to do it. This is the forum, right here, in a public manner. Not waking people up, not doing it in the morning. Those that are doing it, the people that it's being done to know who's doing it. I just ask you to not do that. It's not the right way to handle the situation. So thank you. I do respect the other side's views, and when they're done, I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Okay. Next, we have Margaret Dewallo. And please state your name and city of residence.
My name is Margaret Dewallo, and I live in the North Ranch area of Thousand Oaks. I don't have many problems with the new controls that were put in. I just have a problem with the stop sign at Westlake Boulevard in Valley Spring. I drive for Meals on Wheels, and so I'm in that area a lot when there's a lot of traffic. And I have been stuck, almost backed up to Hillcrest Drive, because people are waiting, stopped, to make that turn onto Valley Spring. You have people that are trying to get through to the left-hand lane that are going into Lang Ranch. It just, during peak congestion hours, that stop sign, it just backs up traffic. As far as the stop sign on Fairmont, and this picture shows it, I don't have a problem with this because I don't use this area, but the only thing you had to do is cut back the tree. The tree would let you see up the hill so you could see traffic coming down. They needed to do something there because you couldn't leave Fairmont. You couldn't see anything because of this tree. Just cut this tree, the few limbs, and you can see up the hill a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Christine Cushion. And please state your name and city of residence.
My name is Christine Cushion, and I am the president of the Homeowners Association at Clubview, which represents 65 homeowners in the Clubview area. I am here because we have over 2 years participated in coming before this commission, and we do thank them for these changes and are in support of those changes. It was in front of our area that there were several accidents that occurred. The visibility to be able to see in making a left-hand turn or even see as you come up around Fairmount, the land rises quite quickly and then it curves and you cannot see adequately. I have had cars try to pass me as I'm trying to get into a left turn lane and slow down. I've almost been rear-ended because I'm slowing down and people don't anticipate it. I also walk daily, and with the new lane markings, it's been a great improvement to feel safe when you're walking where there's no sidewalks. So we are in support of keeping these changes, at least for a period of time, and evaluate them. And thank you for looking into that matter.
I just have a question. Was there a vote taken in support of it, or are you just, was it scientific as far as this, or are you just getting the general feeling of the members of your homeowners?
We actually have letters that I submitted from the homeowners in the association in support of this.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Marilyn Hankins, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering your names.
It can be Hankins, Hawkins, Harskins, or whatever. It's Marilyn Hankins, and I live at Clubview Properties. First of all, I want to thank you for restriping Valley Spring, especially the left turn lane for the residents of Clubview Properties. It's so much safer to make the turn. Otherwise, we were hugging the center of the road because we couldn't see around when someone was coming from North Ranch. So we're safer going into it, not necessarily leaving anymore. I also approve of the stop sign at Fairmont. I know it's supposed to be because of sight line, but what it actually, the other thing it accomplishes is it slows the cars down, and when they can't get the speed up going up the grade that we have there. I am worried about the stop sign at Valley Spring and Westlake Boulevard. When you're accustomed to making a boulevard stop, you tend just to make your stop and then go. And I think we were better off with the yield sign, because when you're making the stop sign, it's not second nature to look over your left shoulder to see if there's a car coming from the other lane. So in that respect, I thought that the yield sign was better. But thank you again for restriping. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Alan Strayer, please.
Yes. My name is Alan Strayer. I live up in the upper right-hand corner of this map in the Ben Johnson tract. We've been there for 17 years. We applaud, my wife and I applaud the measures that have been taken on Valley Spring to improve the safety of that street. My only concern is with the stop sign. I'd like to make a couple points about that. One is, I think a test of frequency of occurrence needs to be addressed on this instance. In the 17 years that we've been going through this intersection, I think I could count on my fingers and maybe my toes the number of times that I've had to yield at that intersection. It's very infrequent. Now, if Valley Spring continued on west of Westlake Boulevard, if it were a through street, there'd be no question that you'd have to have a yield sign at a minimum on that transition road, or perhaps the stop sign. But the stop sign, to me, is not appropriate, what you've got here now. As the previous speaker said, trying to crank your neck around to about a 160-degree angle or something is not very feasible, really. What I would like to suggest to the Commission and the Engineering Department, it's unconventional, but perhaps the people making the left turn off of southbound Westlake Boulevard ought to be the ones who are alerted to yield. They have great visibility in making that turn. They can see anything coming not only up Westlake Boulevard, but also on making that transition road. There are not very many cars who do this, and they don't have much speed after making the stop and then making the left turn onto Valley Spring. And it seems to me that this would be even if unconventional, would be a practical way to deal with this problem. I'm going to come back to the frequency of occurrence for a minute. If we applied the 85% rule that is used to establish speed limits, clearly the stop sign would fail in that regard considerably. It is not an 85% or more situation of occurrence. Anyway, I appreciate the time to speak. I wanted to register those comments with you. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Next we have Sherhan.
I will pass. Mr. Strayer said it all for me.
Do you mind coming up to the microphone so it gets into the record and just saying that, please?
I'm Sherhan. I live on Larkfield, and I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Strayer's comments. The sign at Fairmount is a case of doing the right deed for the wrong reason, but it works. And in the case of the new sign where we used to yield coming off Westlake Boulevard into North Ranch, that is a case of doing the wrong deed for the right reason.
Thank you very much. Doug Jocelyn, please.
I'm Doug Jocelyn. I live at 4203 Valley Spring. A lot of what I was going to say has been said. I'm just going to cover just one subject. The high-speed turnout from Westlake Boulevard onto Valley Spring. Somebody commented that, yeah, you got to crank your neck 90 or 120, 160 degrees. They're absolutely right. Which is a better way to do it? Crank your neck to 160 degrees at 50 miles an hour, which is what a lot of people do when they take that high-speed turn? Or do you stop and then look? Some of us feel that stop sign is very, very important for trying to manage traffic safety in the North Ranch area, particularly as the volume of traffic has built up. When we moved here 14 years ago, Valley Spring was kind of a sleepy 70-foot wide street. Today, it's just a steady stream of Ferraris and 18-wheel trucks and Hondas with no mufflers, and it's a main thoroughfare, and so much of the traffic before the stop sign went through there took that curve between 30 and 50 miles an hour, and they just kept right on going when they got onto Valley Spring. And at 30 to 50 miles an hour, cranking your neck 60 to 90 to 120, 160 degrees, whatever the right number is, to see if anybody's coming isn't realistic. It's much more realistic to stop and then look and then proceed. And I just want to be on record as supporting that stop sign, and I think it has contributed significantly to improved safety on Valley Spring. I think everything else I was going to say has been pretty well covered. I just feel that that stop sign has contributed significantly to improved safety on Valley Spring.
Thank you. We have one question.
Sure.
When you were here at the meetings previously, one of the comments was on the auto test drives. From an anecdotal point of view, have you noticed any difference?
I've noticed a significant decline in Audis and BMWs. Mercedes people, I don't think I ever saw it, but Mercury, Lincoln, Audis, we used to see a lot of them with the price tags. You know who they were. I've seen a significant reduction, and I have heard that there are letters circulated amongst the salespeople and whatnot that they're trying to make an honest effort at trying to cut it down. I think anecdotally, I think I've seen a reduction.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. Ed Franklin?
Good evening. I'm Ed Franklin. I live on Upper Ranch Road. I'm here to endorse the changes that were recently made in the North Ranch community. I preferred, looking back when Westlake Boulevard only had stop signs, long before they implemented the signalized system that currently is in place. I think a little bit of the character of the neighborhood changed once those signals were implemented. But, there's a lot more people living out in the community now than there was several years ago. And I guess that's part of what happens when communities grow. It's considered progress for some. I think the current measures on Valley Spring would not have been implemented if people had abided by the traffic laws to begin with. Unfortunately, many of them had not. From my perspective, I've already seen the stop sign at off of Westlake Boulevard transitioning onto Valley Spring, having two very positive effects. And by the way, in theory, I was opposed to this stop sign. I preferred the yield at that intersection. But nonetheless, I feel that, one, it has reduced speed on Valley Spring. And two, something that's very important to me as a resident on Upper Ranch Road, which is also a cut-through street, as Valley Spring is. I now believe that as a result of that stop sign, there is less traffic circulating through our neighborhood. People are now saying, why go ahead and stop at that sign? If I can make that signal and continue north on Westlake Boulevard, I can then make my right on Canaan. So I do think we continue to have a problem with traffic, clearly with Valley Spring and with Upper Ranch Road, but I think the situation has improved what it has been. So I guess what I'm really saying is there's been some people who have talked about, gee, this yield versus a stop sign and having to turn your head 180 degrees. Yeah, the speed is one element of it, but the volume of traffic, which really hasn't been addressed specific to that yield being replaced with the stop sign, I think is maybe the greatest value that some of us have overlooked until we're discussing this in open forum tonight. I would like the Commission to give greater consideration to implementing measures on Upper Ranch Road. I have two children, 11 and 9. They're unable to stand out in front of their house on the driveway. People drive right up to that curb. We don't have sidewalks. The speed is such I'm unable to have our dog out in front off the leash because I'm concerned about the dog not doing what you'd be doing, running out in the street and getting by a car. So in future meetings, I'd like the Commission to address speed control measures for Upper Ranch as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Wayne Hill.
My name's Wayne Hill. I live at 1683 Ryder Cup Drive. I've submitted this together with two of my neighbors in the Ryder Cup Tam O'Shanter area, and Mr. Strayer said made most of the points that I'd like to make, specifically on the stop sign at Westlake Boulevard. And in Valley Spring, we have no concerns with anything else in the report. I don't want to repeat anything, but I would just like to emphasize one additional point that I'm sure you've all noticed, and that's that I think for the near future anyway, traffic on the movement coming northbound on Westlake Boulevard, well, as Mr. Strayer pointed out, is unbelievably greater than that coming southbound and making the left turn. Is only going to increase because of the construction out on Route 23. We've noticed an unbelievable amount of increase. People cannot get through on 23, so they're taking anything they can get from the 101 north. Basically, most of them, I think, are taking Westlake Boulevard over to Avenida Los Arboles and then getting out. That's bound very soon to cause the type of accident that the other lady referred to, that due to the backup going all the way back out onto Westlake Boulevard. I think it's an amazing opportunity for a lawsuit for the city, quite honestly. And I hope the city's well protected with a traffic study, because I think the numbers must need to show that the volume making that left-hand turn are great enough to warrant that change. Last point I'd like to make is in response to what was made by a gentleman about head craning. When you're coming north on Westlake Boulevard and sliding into that right turn, you can see as you're coming. You don't have to train. You can see if there's anybody lined up there ready to come, or if there's anybody already in that lane making that turn. Therefore, if there were no stop sign, as there used to not be, you didn't have to crane your neck because you already had looked and saw that there was nobody in there. Therefore, you could go straight through. So I think that's not a valid argument for the neck craning and looking back is unbelievable. I'm always afraid that I haven't looked far enough and that I'm going to miss the car that's coming there. Thank you.
Thank you. Howard? I always say it wrong. Weisenfeld, excuse me.
My name is Howard Weisenfeld. I'm a resident of 1527 Upper Ranch Road on the corner of Upper Ranch and Valley Spring. First and foremost, as part of my time, I want to say thank you to some people in public. Christine Cushins, president of the Club U, Georgiana Harris, president of the Westlake Ranch POA, Chris Pastille, Doris and Vince Marafino, Ellen Burson, Deanna and John DeJoya, Randy Witt, who's VP of the Westlake North POA, Chris Hakam, Brian Burns, Ed Franklin, and Julie Gerhardt, and my wife, who's put up with me during this whole thing, and who's with my kids at home, and especially Doug Jocelyn, who was the one who originally came up with the concepts that were already in the city that we showed you, over a year ago. This is a process that a lot of us, basically, and also 20 other people who cared enough to get involved over time to make the neighborhood a safer place. We worked with you folks and the traffic department, like I said, for almost 2 years. It's amazing how long it's been. Bringing ideas, thoughts, examples to help make some changes on Valley Spring, which were ultimately the traffic department came up with the final plan and changes, which were unanimously approved by the commission and subsequently voted 5-0 by the city council. I believe we worked with the city in a respectful manner and tried to come up with the best possible plan. While this may not be perfect, I look at this as a step towards something better. My idea would ultimately be to see a beautiful landscape median, I brought that up here before, running up Valley Spring one day, similar to other communities in Thousand Oaks and adjacent cities. Right now it feels like an open speedway, which is what it is. It's not safe the way it has been. I hope people who are supportive of the current changes and those who are not would consider working with me and others to achieve this goal for Valley Spring one day. If one of the side effects so far is to decrease the amount of vehicles using Valley Spring and Upper Ranch as a route to Canyon or Lindero Canyon from Westlake Boulevard, or does happen to reduce some of the excessive speeding, so be it. It makes a safer neighborhood for the residents who live along Valley Spring as myself, people who walk or bicycle there or walk their dogs or like to walk their children to the park without feeling like they're going to get hit. This far outweighs the slight inconvenience, as some would say, of a few individuals to arrive home 10 seconds later. You need to look out for the greater good of the neighborhood rather than your own desires. I come from a different neighborhood. I moved here only about 3 years ago from the Venice Canals area. I was president of the Canal Association. We work for the better of the community, not just for ourselves. And there are some people in my neighborhood, and I just wanted a safer and better neighborhood, but I'm going to bring it up now. I've been personally harassed over the last 2 weeks by some people who are in this room. I know who they are, some of them, not all, but I know who they are. And they go by my house from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10:30 at night, laying on the horn as they come by my house, going up Valley Spring to one of their gated homes up at the top of the hill, and a couple of people who live, 2 or 3 who live up Valley Springs, Upper Ranch somewhere, who come around the corner blaring on the horn. I'm not the only ones who hear them. My neighbors do, unfortunately. They've been subjected to this. It's not their fault. But if I'm the one who's taken the brunt of it, so be it. I've been standing out here for almost 3 years, or 2 years, trying to deal with something in a proper, respectful manner, in a mature way. And unfortunately, it's amazing how many childish people there are in my neighborhood who have taken it upon themselves to disturb myself, but not only my neighbors. And I really would appreciate, whoever you are, and you know who you are, stop honking your horn and laying on the horn and bothering my children who have been woken up, and myself, because I will not stand for it any longer, I assure you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Howard, we have a question.
When my kids are involved, I'm emotional. Yeah.
Howard, I'm curious if you've approached the Homeowners Association about the possibility of a landscape median on Valley Spring.
Let me compose myself here. I talk about kids bother me. Let me just say about the Homeowners Association. Having been a past president of one and knowing how things work, unfortunately, I've been disappointed with them. I went to them first and foremost before I came here. I tried to get them involved. Basically, their attitude, with the exception of Randy Witt, was they're not that interested. And I asked them because I wanted them to put out, actually, one of the people who's honked their horn at me said, because I was not only myself, but I, as well as another individual, have put a couple things in mailboxes. Some of you might have got them, asking people to come to something or to be involved. And if they didn't show up, that's their business. I understand. Some people are busy or they don't want to get involved. But I was told by this person, well, it's illegal to put things in people's mailboxes. Well, I'm sorry. I don't have everybody's name and address as the association does, but they weren't interested or willing to send out anything to you people. So I couldn't do much about it except try myself to walk up and down on a hot day and put things in the mailbox asking people to get involved. As far as the landscape median, I brought it up. I mentioned it. Personally, our association, the Westlake North Homeowner Association Property Owners, has a tremendous amount of money in the till. And reality is, have they ever used it for anything for us as an association? No. Or as a neighbors? No. It's basically their own little collective till as far as I'm concerned. And if we could use or work with the city to donate or contribute some money towards that effort, I'd like to see it happen, because right now it's there, which is fine, but I'd like to see it done for something better than just sitting there.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have John Swope.
Hi, I'm John Schroep. I live on Winfield, which is a block off of Westlake Boulevard. I happen to have been the vice president of the Westlake North Homeowners Association for 6 years. And maybe this gentleman should come to a meeting and get to know them. We've all been concerned for years about safety and speed. We've tried to get speed bumps on golf course and things like, and Upper Ranch. And the city says, no, it's city streets. You can't do this, you can't do that. So there's some issues there. I walk up and down the street. We have a dog. We have 2 dogs. We've walked up and down the street for years. I bicycle. And I'm well aware of watching speed, and I sympathize with you. I don't blow my horn at anybody. I love living here because there's very few horns blown. I am also, however, concerned that just because there's some good reasons to do things, and not every one of these is correct. I drive a small BMW SUV, and I'm thinking of suing BMW for their claim to be the best engineered car, because either they're wrong or the city's wrong, the city engineer they're talking about. Because I was in favor of the stop sign, because it, you know, like somebody said, it takes 10 seconds until you try to stop there. Okay, when I stop there, I've got 5 issues. Number one, I turn around. First of all, if I try to look in my rearview mirror, that's my issue with BMW. There's no way I can see anything in that lane with my rearview mirror. Okay, the lane is not cut for a stop sign. It was cut for a merge. If it was cut different for a stop sign or a merge where you could actually see behind you, that's another issue. Secondly, when I turn around, I'm looking right into my rear passenger airbag or whatever it is on that center post. The only way I can see it is totally lean over the console, and then I get a glimpse of about that big. And they allow this car on the road. And that's because that's not a normal situation. The other thing is I went the other day at like 6:30 or something, and it was just when the sun's over the hill. Even leaning out, it was a total blur. I couldn't see in that direction. It's not meant to turn that way. I also have seen people now avoid the turnoff, go up to Valley Spring and make a right at the light, and they just zoom right through now, not knowing that the person that's sitting in front might not be able to see them when they're there. A couple of days ago, I was at rush hour, and I moved all the way to the curb into the dotted line on the bike lane, and I still was sticking out enough that I almost got rear-ended with 2 cars coming side by side, and a guy blew his horn. He came, I know, very close to me. It was maybe 2 trucks at the same time, but there are 2 legal vehicles on the same side. Also, the city is giving tickets for pulling into bike lanes before the dotted line. So what happens if you come out far enough that there's no dotted line and you pull into that bike lane? You're subject to a ticket. And if you're not in the bike lane, you're out on the road. I don't have an answer to the problem other than most of the people that take that turnoff, and I'm only talking about the one on Westlake Boulevard. The one on Fairmount serves its purpose and safe, and we probably should have other stop signs around too. But I think everybody that goes there lives there, the majority of the people. I think police enforcement, maybe a camera and a time might help. But this is an issue, this is a situation I think you're going to get somebody killed that wouldn't have been killed had there not been a stop sign there. So, again, I'm all in favor of more safety for our kids in our neighborhood. So, thank you.
Thank you. Questions? All right. Eugene Medlock.
I'm Eugene Medlock. I live at 1605 Fairmount Road. Most of all of the comments that I had about changes to your traffic conditions have been made, particularly by Mr. Strayer. The only comment that I would make is that the stop sign coming when you're going west on Valley Spring and you're coming down the hill, you can't see the stop sign on the right side of the road. But perhaps a solution would be to put a stop sign facing up the hill on the left side of the road so that the traffic coming down and around that curve can actually see a stop sign and know that there's a traffic change coming up. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. For those of you who haven't been to a meeting before, after all the comments, our staff will make comments on what they've heard and the suggestions and the ideas. And so at the end of all this, we'll be hearing from our staff again. Next is Chris Hakem.
Good evening. I'm Chris Hakem. Live on 1677 Fairmount Road. I'm in favor of the recommendations that have been put in place. The stop sign at Westlake and Valley Spring, is a nuisance, as far as having to stop. But again, everything here has been done for safety. And for me, a big part of this area is the volume of traffic. I think at one of the meetings previously, the number of 2,000 cars a day go down Upper Ranch Road. I was shocked, actually, when I heard that number. So to me, anything from a safety perspective that's going to have the volume of traffic decrease in this area is going to make the neighborhood a better place. I have 3 young kids. We try to walk to the park. We've talked about this previously at other meetings. So again, I think this is the first step into making the whole neighborhood a better neighborhood. And, Upper Ranch Road hopefully will be the next thing that we can all get together and address in an appropriate manner as well. So everything else, I think, has been said already. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Harvey Shad.
I am Harry Shad, and I live at on Larkfield, which is the first street after you turn on off of Westlake. I agree with everything that's been done, except the stop sign at the turnout. A turnout is put in to eliminate a person from having to stop. If you want to stop, you go to the intersection and make a right-hand turn. The turnout was put in so you didn't have to stop. And I also agree with the gentlemen that have said to turn and look back 120 degrees is very difficult. The post on my car blocks part of the view of that lane. As a matter of fact, just this evening when I was coming home, I started out and there was a car coming that I didn't see. Now, you see all the cars that are coming that way, making the left-hand turn, when you don't stop. I mean, you see them as you're coming into the turnout. If you come into the turnout and then you stop, in that interval of time, a car can start down, make the left-hand turn, and start coming down to meet you. So rather than being safer, I think it's more dangerous. And, I mean, the few seconds it takes to stop is nothing. But I think it is dangerous the way they've got it arranged now. I've lived in the area for 24 years, and I agree with the gentleman, you could count on your hands and toes the number of times that you've met somebody making that left-hand turn. The only reason I could see that the stop sign was installed was to slow traffic down. But the traffic engineer says that stop signs are not supposed to be installed to slow traffic down. So then there's no reason for having that stop sign there.
Thank you. Dr. Bill Luo? I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. Luo?
Hi, my name's Bill Blue. I'm a resident in the Ben Johnsons. I've been there for 13 years, and most of the things that have been said, I agree with. And that's with respect to the negative approach to the stop sign at Westlake and Valley Spring. I have to agree, number one, that I think the lines for the bike lane and so on are wonderful. I couldn't agree more. I think that if it keeps the cars toward the middle, that's exactly what should happen. And I have seen cars that have gone to the sides. So I think that's an improvement. I also understand the people who have concerns about the speed limit on Valley Spring. I don't know that putting a stop sign is going to change the speed that people go up Valley Spring. My concern is, with respect to the stop sign, as I said, I agree with everybody else so far. The only thing I would add is, I've heard this, the comments that say, well, I haven't seen so many people turn left. Do we have any statistics that say the number of people turn left versus the number of people who take the yield, the right hand turn off the northbound lane? If the statistics are that 10% are turning left or 15% are turning left, maybe that's the right answer. But if it's 1% or 0.5% or 0.1%, then I think we're really maybe killing a fly with a cannon. So other than that, I agree with everything else that's been said about the negative parts of imposing a stop sign there, other than one more thing. I always have to have one more. 6 months from now, when they take those red flags down, and we are down to a stop sign with maybe something painted on the street and maybe a stop sign warning, I'm afraid when people go around there's going to be people coming to the neighborhood that are new to the neighborhood. They won't remember that, or they won't see it, and they won't know about it, and we're going to have accidents there. That may or may not be true, but I don't like to forecast accidents any more than I believe that there's been a lot of accidents at that particular intersection, which would be the last statistic I would ask for. In the yield place where you're putting a stop sign, how many accidents have actually occurred there as a result of having a yield sign versus a stop sign? If we have some statistics on the left-hand turns and the number of accidents, I think you could make a much better case for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Brian Burns?
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I've attended several of these meetings. My name is Brian Burns. I live on 4107 Valley Spring Drive. I'm right at ground zero. I'm third house on the left as you go Westlake Boulevard North onto Valley Spring. I work out of the house quite a bit, so I see a lot that's going on. I've got a few observations. The first thing I'd like to say is that it sure seems to me that the neighborhood's gotten a lot safer. With all the measures that have been made, as much as they're not all perfect, there's no question about it, the neighborhood's a lot safer. I see a lot less traffic. I see a lot less speeding. I see a lot more pedestrians. I see a lot more bikers. I see people congregating in the parking lane, having conversations, and not really looking at the traffic. In the old days, you couldn't just stand there on the side of the road without having to make sure you're watching the cars, which, as a few people have stated, they do have a tendency not to stick to the center line there. So, in my world, the ultimate neighborhood is one where safety comes first, and the neighborhood really feels, like a pedestrian-friendly area where people can, all live together and enjoy it. I think we're moving way fast towards that. But with that said, it's not perfect. And, some of the things I've noticed are that it isn't really a natural stopping point when you come, onto Valley Spring from Westlake Boulevard. And I've heard a few people talk about that. But the one thing that nobody's really mentioning is that that neighborhood street was set up as a through street back before Westlake Boulevard connected up to Canaan. It wasn't a residential neighborhood back in the early days. So that Valley Spring turnout was set up for that to be the main road, and it was set up correctly, for that environment back, 20, 30 years ago. But, more recently, with the residential neighborhood really becoming, the primary focus of that area, that turnout there, it basically doesn't, it doesn't serve the purpose for a residential neighborhood. So what do you do? In this case, the stop sign at least does make traffic slow down. It would seem to me that the people that were speeding, coming through there in the first place, if people were going the speed limit and just turning to the left to be able to see the traffic coming, that was the more natural way for that whole traffic flow to proceed. Unfortunately, in the scheme of the total number of violators of safety, we now have a stop sign there. And it's not for speeders, it's not for, hey, there's one person making a left-hand turn every 3 days. That's not the reasons for it. The reasons are because it allows for people, it forces people to have to at least stop before they enter what used to be the drag strip. So I agree, it doesn't seem like it's a real natural spot for a stop sign. I kind of look at it like death by hanging or guillotine. You could put a yield sign there, and then people would just speed right through it. Sure, they'd be able to look to the left and see there's nobody coming, but they'd be speeding on to Valley Spring, and now the safety of many would be basically compromised for one person that feels like they might get rear-ended and, slap a lawsuit on the city, which I don't think is the right way to proceed. If somebody gets rear-ended there, it looks to me like those people need to have their own conversation about negligence. So, it seems to me that it's really working well, and I think other than that, all the points have been made tonight. I just want to thank the Traffic Commission. I think that the job has been done over a long period of time. It shouldn't be unraveled because a few people who didn't want to participate and basically spend a year or two involvement in this thing, want to now, be the squeaky wheels and honk the horn in front of Howard's house, who was one of the, most, he's the most conscientious guy in our neighborhood as far as, really caring about the neighborhood. And the place is a great place, and I'm really happy with everything that's gone on there. And I would say that we've taken 2 bites out of the apple out of 3. I think the traffic lights at Westlake Boulevard and at Canaan, I think those 2 traffic lights, that was the first bite out of the apple there as far as motivating people to go Westlake Boulevard to Canaan. I think that what we've done now here in the last 30 days is the second bite out of the apple. We've now impeded the people that would want to basically cut through and seemingly think they're going to save time. It's no longer working like that. The third bite of the apple would be to put another stop sign in on Upper Ranch at Valley Spring, and also the median that Howard talked about, as well as, I don't have an answer for Upper Ranch, but I think that would be the last thing to look at, would be doing something, under the consensus of the Upper Ranch people. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, next we have Marilee Griffin.
Thank you. I'm Marilee Griffin, and I live at 4611 Thames Center. I do travel up Westlake Boulevard every evening on my way home. I'm in agreement with all the changes. I think they're wonderful changes for our neighborhood because people do drive too fast. However, I am definitely opposed with the Boulevard stop at Valley Spring and Westlake Boulevard. I think it impedes the flow of traffic. And all the other reasons that have been given, I am definitely in agreement with. Thank you.
Thank you. John McKee.
My name's John McKee, and I live at 4347 Valley Spring, which is, I'm the second house from Fairmount, and I'm new to the neighborhood, been there 2 years, and I applaud you what you've done, because when I bought the house, I didn't realize what I was getting into. A couple people said, watch out for Valley Spring Drive, but I didn't know what that meant. Now I do. And so, the policeman is always in front of my house catching speeders. They always put the sign that registers your speed in front of my house. And, I don't mean to be repetitive, but one night I went out last fall in front of my house and got the speed of everybody going south on Valley Spring Drive and wrote the speeds down in the back of my checkbook. And, I had a low at 28, a high of 57. I had 4 at 35 or below and 21 over 35, with the average speed being 7.9 miles per hour over 35 miles an hour. So I applaud you what you've done. I occasionally have people over. I've had one car hit sitting in front of my house with people coming down the hill, not watching what we're doing, trying to pass each other. So anything that can be done, and I know I have problems a little bit with the stop at Westlake and looking back, but anything, I know it's safety, but it does slow these people down to make this extra stop, and there has been a difference. They haven't put the sign out front, so I go take my 25 measurements again, but people have slowed down, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve and Jackie Smith.
Hi, I'm Jackie Smith. This is my husband, Steve. We live on Wood Lane Court, off of Larkfield and Valley Spring Drive. I agree completely with Mr. Strayer and a number of other people that have been up here this evening, and with Mrs. Griffin, who spoke about the impeding the flow of traffic. And what I've noticed is in that off-ramp, or turnout, I've noticed people going up to Valley Spring Drive and making a right-hand turn and then flying past me while I'm at the stop sign. And I notice more and more people doing that. And I think it's a real temporary measure to expect that people are going to stop there. I also think the idea about a median down Valley Spring Drive is a wonderful idea. And maybe more stop signs. Upper Ranch Road is the road that most of the traffic exits the neighborhood, because all of the Ben Johnson homes and all of the homes up off of Canterbury and everyone uses that Valley Spring Drive, and people do fly down that street. Thank you for your time.
I too agree with most of what's been said here tonight. I'm not opposed to a stop sign at Fairmont. I just think it should have been put at Upper Ranch, because when you're coming down the hill, it comes upon you awful suddenly. As far as the stop sign at Valley Spring and Westlake Boulevard, it might. If we're going to put a stop sign there, I would say we take the stop sign out and plant flowers in that Gore Point and make everybody go up to Valley Spring Drive and make a right-hand turn. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make any... putting a stop sign there impedes the flow of traffic, and as somebody said, traffic is getting heavier and heavier in that area. Well, it doesn't make any sense to restrict traffic. So, like I say, if we're going to leave that stop sign there, I'd be in favor of just making it a park and making everybody go up to Westlake Boulevard and turn right. I mean, Valley Spring Drive and turn right. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all the speakers that we have, and we is my understanding that we did not have a speaker, a main speaker for the con position. Is that correct? So we are able to allow the main speaker for the pro position to come back with a rebuttal if they'd like to. That was John.
Do I get a chance to close it?
Yes, you do.
First thing is, I have to tell you, I came to this meeting with some apprehension because I expected to hear more negative comments than just the stop sign. So I would tell you that it looks like there's just what I hear, a fairly small point of the improvements for the most part that seem to be the issue that people have. So I would tell you that personally, and I believe the others that worked on this are probably pleased to have heard that tonight. Well, I'd be the first one to tell you that if there was ways to redesign entry into our neighborhood from Westlake that made sense, and we didn't have to cut the oak tree down, and you could still have trucks get into the neighborhood, whatever needs to be done, it would make a lot of sense, because I don't know of another street in the area that has an on-ramp to it. especially a neighborhood of the type of homes we have. I'm not aware of anything in Westlake or Thousand Oaks that has an on-ramp approach. It's absolutely insane. So I'll be the first one to tell you that if the end result down the line is to redesign this intersection, then there's probably a lot of people that would show up at that meeting and support that. It's not a bad idea. It was one I had written down listening to the comments. Couple things I would like to mention is not to say that the information that was given is not accurate. I might not have understood it correctly, and that is the comment about the lady from Meals on Wheels being backed up down to Hillcrest. I just have a very difficult time believing that traffic is backed up down to Hillcrest because of this stop sign that's at Valley Spring and the on-ramp. I'm just having a difficult time understanding that. So maybe I didn't understand the comment carefully, and maybe that could be reiterated at some point. If anything, the backup on Westlake Boulevard would help traffic get through in a quick manner because the traffic would be moving slowly and there would be no issue of backup at that point. Safety was what was at on everybody's mind when things like the stop sign was put at this location. And while I do not disagree with many of you that say, boy, I pull up to that stop sign and I've been driving here for 13 or 14 years and I don't run into situations where I get into a merge conflict with somebody. I'd say to you, maybe you're not driving at the right time of the day, because I come home at peak traffic and I've literally almost had a car in my side door twice. Because what happens is the same situation that the traffic engineers and the commission must be extremely aware of. And that's how driving manners in this United States, and especially California, I notice it more than anything, have degraded tremendously over the last 5 years. How many of you, raise your hand, at least from this standpoint, would say that you go to an intersection and a light turns red, and how many times a day do you see somebody run that light, and if you had put your foot on the gas, you would have been into their car? Or their left turn signal turns red and they go through the intersection with no regard for you. That's what the safety issue was with the yield sign. It was that when people saw you entering the Valley Spring portion and they were in the on-ramp, they raced you. And so here you were being the innocent person with the right-of-way, only to be raced by somebody that tries to put their front end in front of yours, and you're doing the right thing and driving at the right speed, but only to have a conflict. There's where the safety issue was. So I do agree with you. It is a little difficult to turn around with your neck. I do agree with you it's an inconvenience. I do agree with you there could be times when there's a backup. But it was put in for those safety considerations, and quite a few of us had situations where we were almost hit. The benefit of this is that on Valley Spring and in the neighborhood, you have an issue with carry-through speed. You're coming off a 50-mile-an-hour street. Today, cars all handle well. You don't have to own a Porsche. You could have a Toyota. You could have a Volkswagen. And you can negotiate that at the full speed from 50 miles an hour on Valley Spring and from Westlake Boulevard and enter Valley Spring. And that's one of the difficulties is the carry-through speed. And so the stop sign has had a dramatic effect. I do recognize it's inconvenient for some people, but it's had a dramatic effect on the carry-through speed on Valley Spring. I did hear some comments about Fairmont. And I think the thing there to do, and John and Jim, I don't know if you recall the discussions that had gone on quite a few meetings ago, 2 or so meetings ago, but there was a comment that it might be a necessity to do some light trimming back of that foliage that's in that unimproved area. And that may be needed to be looked at without hacking it, because it's important we don't hack it for the neighbors so that it looks terrible. I think you can do some very selective pruning and make the visibility to that stop sign much, much better, which might put a lot of concerns to rest. So I would ask that our neighbors maybe try and live with this for a while.
I'm sorry.
And be supportive of...
The light has gone out. I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Okay, just for point of information, on speaker cards, we've had 2 that were pro, and we've had 6 that were con. So yes, and we had a number of letters from people. There's more? Okay, those need to be turned into our clerk there. Oh, boy. All right, so we'll tally them, and at the end, we'll get that tally. But we did have some letters turned in.
The letters were 12 pro, and then there were 10 con to the Westlake stop sign only, and 3 con to everything that we've done.
Thank you. I just want to put everything over the TV and everything into the record so we all know where we're at. At this point, do we have some comments from the staff?
Yes, thank you. We've been taking a number of notes based on the input that we heard this evening. And the first item is that we heard was the vegetation trimming back near Fairmont. That's something that we noted, and we'll have have an inspection performed, and if needed, have our landscaping staff go out there and trim trees and branches back so that visibility is increased where the signs are placed. A lot of discussion centered around the Westlake Boulevard right turn onto Valley Spring Drive, the yield sign replaced with a stop sign, and there's a situation that was created when the bike lane was added right there as the people came off of Westlake Boulevard where the limit line ends, the bike lane begins. So there's some issues with merging that were created. About 6 feet of the traffic lane was removed because the bike lane was added, so the merging area was reduced. So someone coming in off Westlake Boulevard immediately is thrown into the through lane of someone that had made a southbound left turn from Westlake Boulevard. So we check with our yield sign requirements and stop sign requirements, and there was some concern as to whether or not there was sufficient merging distance, and it doesn't appear that merging distance is adequate. That's why that's one of the big reasons why that was converted to a stop sign, as well as the issue of the turning your head to see oncoming traffic, whether or not you can turn your head sufficiently. Whether it's a yield sign or a stop sign, you would still have to turn your head more than 90 degrees. And in this situation, if a person were to come to a complete stop, yes, they would have to turn their head and probably have to turn part of their body in order to see oncoming traffic. Under a yield sign condition, that's very difficult to do, especially if you're traveling, at speeds of maybe 30 miles an hour plus through that right turn island. And in addition, now that the bike lane is created, there's some issues with having to notice, is there bicyclists present and absorbing all the information in a short amount of time. So those were the big reasons why that was turned to a stop sign. There's some ideas as to whether or not can the yield sign or the stop sign be removed and we stop the traffic that comes off of southbound Westlake Boulevard. That's a possibility. That's something that we would consider, or we had thoughts of prior to this meeting, and we would incorporate that in our follow-up meeting to see, what is the possibility, what is the data that we have as far as the turns that come off Westlake Boulevard, the turns that make that right turn versus the left turn movement, present all that information. Someone also had another idea about that same intersection to close off that right turn island and make everyone make a right turn at the signal. That's a possibility. That I'm sure that would be a larger cost because you would have to probably change the radius of that area to make a right turn. I don't think that radius at that intersection is designed for right turns, so we'd have to look at that and report that and include that in our follow-up report. Issues about whether or not there's reduced traffic. That's something that we're going to follow up after the school year resumes. We had prior counts prior to all the changes on Valley Spring Drive, so we can see whether or not if there was an increase, decrease, or no change in traffic volume on Valley Spring Drive. So that's something that we would report back on our follow-up meeting. issue of whether or not stop signs control speed. Again, we as traffic engineers don't recommend stop signs be used for speed control because they've proven that they do not control speed. They will control speed in the immediate area of the stop sign, but our preliminary radar measurements show that overall there's really no change in speed as of yet on Valley Spring Drive. But you will get a reduction of speed in the immediate area of stop signs. We also have the issue of whether or not traffic backs up to Hillcrest. As soon as we heard that issue, we received a phone call. We went out there, went out at the time that was specified that this incident happens. We took several observations, performed a delay study, a queuing study to see, how far does the vehicles back up off the Westlake Boulevard right turn. And each time we went out there, it seems like the average queue for that right turn, or the heaviest queue, seemed to be about 4 vehicles. And this is during the PM commute period with an average delay of about 3 seconds. So I'm sure that varies as if a platoon is larger, your delay will be higher, but this is the average delay over a 1-hour period. Comment about whether or not if the removal of flags will result in more collisions by, I think it was with new residents. Generally, the reason why flags are installed are for the benefit of people who drive the area on a regular basis so that they are aware of something new, something different in the road. If someone is new to the area, they're not aware of the prior road conditions, so if we remove the flags, they probably, weren't aware that it was, of the prior conditions, that there were no stop signs at Fairmont or there was a yield sign at the Westlake Boulevard right turn onto Valley Spring Drive. And I believe that's the end of the comments that we had.
Thank you, Mr. Mashiko. All right, our total now is pro statement cards 6 and con 8. So there we are. At this time, do we have any questions of staff? Commissioner?
There was a comment that some of the traffic now going northbound on Westlake Boulevard is going to the traffic light at Valley Spring to make the right turn. Is that something that can be measured or checked? And can you give us a recommendation on that issue then?
Yes, we actually, during our observation, we actually did observe that movement occurring. It didn't seem to be very frequent, but one of the measures we can do without that the Traffic Commission would not have to recommend, it's an administrative process, we would basically post a no right turn at that intersection.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Mashiko? Okay, at this point I will close the community meeting, and it's time for a discussion or a motion from the commission. Commissioner?
I'd like I think we ought to look at that at some point down the road, see how this works out with the stop sign. If it doesn't, give that some consideration.
Would you like to make a motion that the staff study that option?
Yes, I would. I would like to see the staff study that option and report back when they come back to us again with that 6-month study.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion?
In the study, would it include, I mean, we're talking about blocking off the on-ramp, for lack of a better word, with a flower box or something, or I would think in the study it would make sense to also study the no right turn at the intersection as an option and have both of those things studied at the same time. Would that be possible as a friendly amendment?
I'm amenable to that, yes.
Is there any more discussion on the motion?
And part of that study, would you also be, or part of that motion, would you be amenable to adding one more observation, which would be the possibility of putting an additional stop sign on the traffic coming from Westlake Boulevard that has made a left turn, the southbound Westlake Boulevard, making an eastbound turn onto Valley Spring, if there were an additional stop sign for that traffic adjacent to the off-ramp, on-ramp, just as a consideration for the Traffic Commission at that 6-month period. Are you understanding?
It's getting pretty convoluted now.
It's just an additional item to consider.
A right turn arrow might be a possibility at that signal.
Well, what I'm actually referring to, Wes, would be if the ramp is not eliminated, and there are cars that do come southbound on Westlake Boulevard and make a left turn onto the eastbound Valley Spring, and some of the issues that the residents have voiced are that by the time they look to the left to see if it's safe, another car could be coming up. So if there were another stop sign for those cars approaching, then there would be 2 adjacent stop signs there.
That seems to me to really impede traffic on a through street. Perhaps the motion should just be to study all the options at that corner.
I'll agree with that.
All right.
We'll eliminate it to that. Now, there is, I do like the flower box, though, and
With emphasis
putting
on the
a
flower
right
box,
turn lane in there,
okay?
I think will eliminate the problem.
Okay, I'm sorry. I should not have spoke out that way. Can we just have a more formal vote, please?
Chair McMinn,
Yes.
Vice Chair Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvin,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner McKay.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion? We do have some other items to consider. No, that's what I'm talking about. We need to consider all these other items, so.
We never voted on the primary.
No, we didn't. But, well, that's their business. That was their main problem. Okay. On the rest of it, so, Diane, you want to do that?
I'd like to make a motion to, I'd like to make a motion to support staff recommendations as presented on Valley Spring.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Second.
Yeah, I think what we've done so far is done remarkably well. I've been through it quite a bit, and I'm impressed, and I think we ought to proceed on, and it may be that we recommend some changes, but I think we ought to hold the line until we do.
Okay, can we have a formal vote? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just want to go on record that I'm a resident in the in this neighborhood and experience these issues on a daily basis, and I wanted to make it known that I'm keeping a very open mind to all these issues that the residents are bringing to the commission, and I, for one, believe we should adopt this recommendation by the traffic engineers.
Thank you. And just for clarification, I understand you talked to the city attorney and you were not advised to recuse yourself?
That is correct. My home is it's outside the 500-foot radius, and I just again, want to reiterate that I do have an open mind to all sides on this issue.
Okay, thank you. Now we can have the vote.
Chair McMinn,
Yes.
Vice Chair Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvin,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner McKay.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Mr. Halliwell, did you have a comment?
Yes, was that motion to approve the staff recommendation as noted in the report?
Yes, it was.
And no exceptions to it?
Yes. Okay. I need to find the rest of my agenda here. Let's see. Item number 7, status report of prior traffic commission recommendations. There are none. Item number 8, traffic commission comments. Do we have any? Commissioner?
I have one. I noticed a situation on Hillcrest and Moore Park. My bank is right there. Every time I come out of that bank and catch a signal, there's at least 5 cars that go through a red light. And somebody's going to get clipped there pretty bad. I think that's a perfect place for a motor officer to spend some time.
Are there any other comments? Mr. Halliwell?
Have you noticed the red light runners, are they the through traffic or the left turn traffic? Or?
Traffic coming from home Office Depot, that way, in that direction.
The eastbound through traffic?
Correct.
At Moore Park and Hillcrest?
And turning left towards the freeway. Going westbound, yes. Every time I've been there, I've counted 4 to 5 cars when the signal changes, and we sit there with a green light as a train of cars go through.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
I would just say, having gone that way to work for years and years, I would sit at that light, at the green light, watching all the cars coming through, and it's a short enough green as it is, so I would concur with Commissioner McDonald that there may be an issue there.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I thought that our meeting went really well. I feel like the staff and the public did an amazing job in working this whole situation out, and I'm really, really impressed. That's all. I thought it went well, and I think that the public is happy, and I think that if we continue to study it and work on it, they'll get even happier. So, congratulations, staff. I think that's really great. Item number 9, work program, information item. We really have one item on here, and that's it at this time. Item number 10, engineer comments. Is there anything? No. 11, our schedule. July. We're going to have a meeting in July. Will we have something on the agenda for July?
Yes, we anticipate having the Lynn Road, Avenida de los Arboles, no right turn on red issue before you in July.
Okay.
Which will require noticing a large group of residents.
Another big fun meeting.
Yes.
All right. Can I ask a question about that? Yes.
Just so, maybe it's in here and I missed it, but so the no right turn on red at Arbalest, which direction?
At the intersection of Avenida de los Arboles and Lynn Road, the eastbound direction coming from Wildwood Park.
Okay. They think the car is coming at them too fast. They shouldn't be able to turn right?
Some people do and some people don't.
As always.
Right. So it's the right turn on red issue. Right now they can make a right turn on red.
Okay. Thank you.
Could we make sure we have whatever data that the county has on that for the accidents in the area on that with your report?
There was a nod in the corner.
Yes, we have that information.
Okay, thank you. All right, at this time, I will adjourn to 7:30 p.m. Wednesday, July 19th, 2006, in the boardroom of the Civic Arts Plaza on the 3rd floor. Thank you, everybody.
Chiroba undu baba kubazimu undu uni mjemna minchim belvakana ikin poinem pa me vandu bakunga chiroba undu kubazimu mele tibete vandu mele kundu mele kurponi mele kalinga ama chipana ama na bele kutaka vandu undu kajimi kunga jimi na bele fatma kunga jire na kunga bama munga hete kuno kandu kurunye